And while the authorities are doing all they can to track down Christopher Dorner, those on the left are dismissing the notion that his shooting rampage had anything to do with his political ideology. Now, that same courtesy was never given to conservatives in the wake of previous senseless acts of violence, and particularly by the liberal media. Now, here's a prime example. Back in July, within hours of the Colorado movie theater shooting, ABC News' Brian Ross went on the air and inaccurately reported this.
I want to go to Brian Ross here, because, Brian, you've been looking at investigating the background of Jim Holmes here, and you found something that might be significant.
There's a Jim Holmes of Aurora, Colorado page on the Colorado Tea Party site as well, talking about him joining the Tea Party last year. Now, we don't know if this is the same Jim Holmes, but it's Jim Holmes of Aurora, Colorado.
Now, Brian Ross was completely wrong. The shooter was not a member of the Tea Party. So much for journalism. Joining me now to explain all this, Fox News political analyst Kirsten Powers. From the Daily Caller, Tucker Carlson. Welcome, both of you. Good to see you. Kirsten, we can go back to the Oklahoma City bombing. We can go, and I'm going to show you some other tape that we have here. We can go to any of these shootings. Anytime there's any indication that the person either listened to talk radio, watched Fox News, liked Rush Limbaugh, they immediately blame. I'm not going to do that. I don't hold, just because this guy liked left-wingers, I don't blame him. I blame them.
You mean you blame him, not them?
I blame him. Yes, I do not blame them.
No,
just because he liked them.
And I think most conservatives have been pretty much saying that. When I saw the news that he had written a manifesto and he singled out cable hosts, the first thing I thought was, please God, don't let it be a single person from Fox News, because otherwise it will be completely Fox News's fault, even if there are other people in it. And, you know, it turns out it loves Obama, loves Hillary, loves all these left-wing cable show hosts, which of course have nothing to do with it. But we know what would happen if the shoe was on the other foot, which is that this would be, Fox News would have been blamed for any deaths that this man caused.
All right, let's prove that point that you're making. We'll get Tucker involved in this. Oklahoma City bombing, NBC News, Brian Gumbel. Let's watch.
The bombing in Oklahoma City has focused renewed attention on the rhetoric that's been coming from the right and those who cater to angry white men. While no one's suggesting that right-wing radio jocks approve of violence, the extent to which their approach fosters violence is being questioned by many observers, including the President of the United States. The list of those the President may have had in mind is at once long and familiar. Right-wing talk show hosts like Rush Limbaugh, Bob Grant, Oliver North, G. Gordon Liddy, Michael Reagan, and others take to the air every day with basically the same format. Detail a problem, blame the government or a group, and invite invective from like-minded people.
We could make the same argument.
That's unbelievable. Thank God Brian Gumbel hosts a sports show now. I mean, I didn't blame the Sierra Club for the Unabomber. I mean, drawing broad...
Al Gore.
Exactly. Drawing broad societal conclusions from the actions of a crazy person is clearly invalid. It's also low and cheap. It's pure propaganda. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. And by the way, it's always before we know the facts. Settle down. These stories are complicated. I used to cover crime. The one thing you learn is you don't actually know what happened. You're not going to know for quite some time.
And there'll never be reciprocity here, because God forbid if there's a future event that happens, they'll go right back to blaming, well, he liked Sean Hannity. He liked talk radio.
Shameless. Totally shameless.
All right, let's go to another example. Gabrielle Giffords was shot. Media quick to say the Tea Party was to blame. Tea Party had nothing to do with it. He was a left-winger.
Last March, vandals damaged her Tucson district office after the health care reform vote. Giffords talked about that on MSNBC.
Are you afraid? Are you fearful today?
I'm not. We've had hundreds and hundreds of protesters over the course of the last several months.
But Giffords, a conservative Democrat, was concerned about heated campaign rhetoric from the Tea Party.
She's a Democrat from a largely Republican district. She was as familiar as anyone with the partisan divide, as you heard Steve mention there. In fact, her father today was asked this question by the New York Post as he rushed to the hospital to be by her side. Did your daughter have any enemies? And his response was, yes, the whole Tea Party.
You know, Kirsten, if I just listened to Barack Obama, I would hear that Republicans, their plan, they want dirty air and water, that they don't care about kids with autism, Down syndrome, or the elderly. Now, this guy likes Obama. Can I connect that? Using their logic, I would be able to connect perhaps his words to this guy's actions, using their logic. But I don't do that.
Well, I mean, the other thing is, I don't know if you remember that they also blamed Sarah Palin for Gabrielle Gifford's death because she had said something about keeping Democrats in the crosshairs or something.
Targeted districts.
And then they pulled out some map that showed some targets on different things, which is a very common thing done in politics. Meanwhile, the Southern Poverty Law Center actually has an actual hate map. It's an actual map that shows places that they consider hate groups, and the Family Research Council is on it, and somebody went there and killed somebody. You know, I don't like the Family Research Council. I think I'm on record about that. But look, this is like an actual killing by somebody who, you know, went there because of a liberal group.
Last word.
I think we're missing out on the actual debates. I mean, it would be nice to hear the parties debate their ideas. These are kind of significant issues. Should we spend more or less? This stuff is a distraction, and it's disgusting, actually, that they would stoop this low.
By the way, targeted districts, I love my friend Bob Beckel. He started it.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. And I'm not blaming Bob either for any killings.
Nobody's blaming Bob. Good grief. We can blame him for some things.
Yeah, let's not blame him for other things.
All right, guys, thank you both for being with us.